lunch and learn. In this case, the learning part. Hopefully, you can learn something today. I'm not so concerned about you learning something today as much as I am of creating an opportunity for us to have a conversation, or eventually leaving this place with a desire to reflect and a desire to think about important aspects that they have impact in our work and who we are and our colleagues. My desire, like Working Genius is one of the frameworks we've been training most of our teams in Orange County. My desire is that this is also a perspective that could help us interact with one another, whether it is a colleague or is our direct supervisor or is somebody that we are supervising, that our relationships are shaped and in some ways we are willing to work hard in the way we communicate with one another, because that means we are trying to do our best to get out of our comfort zone. That is not necessarily the best place to be, but to a place where we flourish at the same time we lead other people to the same environment, okay? Now, I would like to tell you a story. Carla was a customer service manager who often found herself overwhelmed by the daily amount of complaints and problems. So imagine, working in customer service and get that on a daily basis. So every phone call seemed to bring another issue, and it was wearing her down. Her team was feeling strained too, morale was low, and this is an office that once upon a time it was vibrant and energetic. So this is like they're experiencing something was completely the opposite that they once experienced. So one evening, Carla overheard her young daughter playing, and she was pretending to be a superhero called Captain Fixer, whose superpower was turning people's bad days into good ones with her magical words. So this imaginative play struck Carla. Why not be a superhero at work? So the next day she introduced Mission Positive Impact to her team. They weren't just answering calls, they were day enhancers. So they're going from just moving on a mechanical way and fulfilling tasks to getting some sort of a meaning behind what they were doing. So they were equipped with a superpower to solve problems and turn customers' days around. Each resolved call was a mission accomplished, a point scored against the villains of frustration and dissatisfaction. This simple shift in perspective from seeing problems to embracing solutions as heroic missions changed everything. The team started celebrating each resolved issue. They kept a victory board tallying how many good day spells they cast each week. Soon the energy in the office shifted, laughter returned, high fives were exchanged after tough calls, and team members supported each other's missions enthusiastically. Not only did their customer satisfaction scores soar, but the team's morale skyrocketed too. They had become heroes in their narrative. And each day was an opportunity for a new victory. Okay? So, perspectives, right? Can you see that a little bit? So, is a guy on an island, and then we have somebody on a boat. The guy on an island says, boat. The guy on the boat said, land. They are perceiving the other side to be the solution for their situation. And neither one is that solution. But there is good perspective on both sides. They are hopeful that one of the other side, will help them. All right. So, as we reflect, what informs or what contributes to our point of view and perspective? Can we name some things that contribute for our point of view, for our perspective, that shape the way we see things? Circumstances, past experiences, so our history, DNA. You know what? I would agree 51% with you.
And I'm going to tell you why. You know, when you talk about nature versus nurture, and you're talking about, like, I have a son who's adopted from China and he's been raised with us, eating burgers and French fries and Mexican food. And if you ask him, what is your favorite food? He says dumplings. He's from China originally. I mean, go figure. DNA has something to do with this. I mean, also, he's Chinese, not Asian, according to him. But, anyways, that's his perspective. Any other perspective? Culture, yes, culture. Those around us, because they create an environment that shapes how we see things. Allison? Environment, okay. Anyone else? Right, so I wrote some, like, knowledge, right? Knowledge. So what we know shapes us. Well, I got an email from Shannon this week, and most of us did, about the training and how trauma, past experience changed the amygdala, and that changes the way individuals will behave. That knowledge changed my perspective. Does that make sense? When we talk about training for homelessness, it's because we believe that knowledge not just equips us, but will change the way we see things, and our behavior will follow. Isn't that interesting? Let's see another one. Position. Yes. Depending on, let's say, the position you have in an organization, you might have a different perspective, right? So if you're on the front lines, you have a specific perspective. If you're middle management, you have a different perspective. If you're like executive position, you have a different perspective. If you are now based on department, if you're in HR, you're looking for work satisfaction, you're looking for morale, you're making sure that people are doing what their job description says they're supposed to be doing. If you're a supervisor, you are supporting in that role, right? So, if you are an accountant, your job is completely different, and therefore your perspective in the company is unique. If you're in facilities, the same way, right? Experience. And this is an important one. Because sometimes, due to very good and positive experience, whether it's work experience, whether it's life experience, and let me just say this, I've been saying this now a while, not all appearance of maturity is maturity, right? And this is a perspective that I'm trying to kind of drill into people around me, because I'm part of other people's environments, like Alyssa was saying, the people around us. You are also a person, and I know when we say people around us, but we also someone around someone else. So we're also shaping someone's environments, right? Now, experience has a lot of positive sides, and has a lot of negative ones. And I know we use experience more in the positive way, so I'm going to show more on the negative side. Sometimes experiences leads us to make assumptions. And those assumptions could be completely wrong. And that's something for us to say, experience is good, but let's not just assume. I used to have a professor who used to say, make no assumptions. Because if you make assumptions, you're clouding your perspective in trying to understand the truth in what's really happening in front of you. Culture, society. So I was born in Portugal. I was raised in Portugal. My parents are Portuguese, right? That language alone shapes the way I establish logic. My logic is defined differently than it is Naveen's. And Naveen was born in Egypt, and she speaks Egyptian, French, and English, and Miguelish. Miguelish? Miguelish, yes. She knows how to navigate Miguel, right? And that's the language. It's the power that a spouse has to shape someone's perspective. What they say, the husband is the head, but the wife is the neck, right? We only look wherever the Whatever. All right, society too. So it's culture. Culture is a set of norms, behaviors that have been established around, a specific location. There is macro culture. There is micro culture. In the United States, we live in Orange County, in Southern California, in Orange County, and we definitely understand there is a difference in our culture here, just in comparison with LA. Just totally different. Right? That's microculture. Everybody speaks the same language, yet the expectations, ways of life are different. Beliefs and values. Now, most of us are Christians. We share that belief, that faith, that value. But let me share something about my wife and I. This is when it gets interesting. I'm not allowed to load the dishwasher. So someone would say, "Oh, Andre, what a jerk. You don't help your wife in the kitchen, helping your dishwasher?" Because from that point of view, as a husband, I should be helping. What a nice guy, But my wife doesn't let me. You know why? Because we have different values when it comes to this. For Drop the mic, Patrick. I do it wrong, but why? Because in her perspective, her value is you can fit more. And mine is, who cares? If you don't wash it, if you only wash it once, why don't you wash it twice? Actually, water in California, my perspective tells me that water in California is cheap because I come from Europe. And in Europe, it's really expensive. My dad times me how long I take a shower over there, right? Because it's the impact it has on his budget. But here, it's different. I learned that people actually take 30-minute showers here. And I'm like, what? And that was shocking to me. In and out. Wonderful husband. Well, now you know that Miguel has been using a lot of shampoo. And this is why. Now, I know this is funny and interesting, but you see, depending where you grow up, you're even on a perspective of a shower and the simple things of life, you speak from that value, from that standpoint of view. Cognitive bias, right? So there's cognitive bias. We all have bias, and hopefully, and we've done trainings in the past, it's not that you're going to go to a training and you're going to stop being biased. You are biased. I think the most important thing is recognize you are, and because of those assumptions due to our bias, we need to be able to reflect and take a deep breath and again reflect and question ourselves. Are all women bad drivers? No, right? I said that because it's common in the Western world. In Irvine, it's different, but I'm not going to say why. Right, praise? Right? Life stages and changes. This is another one. Life stages and changes, right? That could depend on the individual. Could depend where you are. This is kind of could blend with the experiences, but depending where you are at, if you have a teenage son or daughter, then that life stage is going to define the way they behave. And we all have, if you're a parent, you all have a lot to say about a teenage child. And their behavior is not going to be the same, but it's a stage in their lives that's going to determine the way they think and process and act. And will have impact in parents and friends and people around them, even though it's temporary. Okay, so understanding the impact of perspective. Individual uniqueness. So each person has their own distinct perspective. It's important to understand that no two individuals will view a situation or issue through the same lenses. We are all different. Even if you were born in the same household, under the same parents, you have a different perspective. So, the first thing I want to say when it comes to the part of perspective is embrace everyone because everyone has a different perspective on something. Your perspective is not absolute, it's subjective to you on the same counts that we just listed before. Second, selective perception. People's perspectives filter their experiences and attention. So they tend to perceive and understand life through the framework of their own viewpoints, often seeing only what their perspective permits or allows. Altering one's perspective can consequently change what they focus on and how they interpret life's events. This process can also introduce bias, leading people to pay attention to information that affirms their existing beliefs while ignoring or misinterpreting data that challenges them. Right? That's why sometimes people may feel defensive about certain things. So, perspectives are dynamic. They vary over time and are influenced by numerous factors such as job roles, we talk about positions, life experiences, underlying assumptions, physiological conditions, and personal values. What is easy to you may be hard for someone else. And I want to say that to supervisors because it's hard for us sometimes to attain the fact that something is so easy to you. How come the other person cannot get it? And that's frustrating. But you need to utilize empathy, which is really try to understand how is that person thinking. That's called adaptive leadership, and or situational leadership if you really want to go to the context around the individual. But if you want to adapt around the individual, it's called adaptive leadership. You want to understand first, how does this person communicate? Not how I communicate, because you are the leader, right? So you are the one that has to do is in the struggle to really shift and adapt to that individual. For example, a person might be more aware of food in their surroundings when they are hungry compared to when they're not. So that perspective is dynamic. If you're hungry, you will start thinking about food and you're going to be looking for that more often than not. Now, interpretation of messages. The way a message is received and interpreted can change dramatically based on an individual's perspective. The same set of words can be taken as friendly tease or as offensive, depending on the receiver's viewpoint. That's why when we do the sexual harassment training, there is an important expression that is said there, is that it is measured on impact, not on your intentions. It's measured on impact. Obviously, there is a follow-up where the person could justify, I didn't intend. You can always apologize and move forward. We're not going to say, you did something and suddenly we fall on you. No, there is also a recurrent behavior or pattern that leads into that. But I'm saying impact is important because what we say can be understood as, oh, we just joked and we laughed, or and somebody could find that offensive, right? And number 5, assumption of similarity. Misunderstandings arise when there is an assumption that others share the same perspective. Again, assumption. For instance, just because one has a passion for sports or a love for horses doesn't mean everyone else shares those interests. So let me give you another example. I have a brother, my second oldest brother. For some reason, he has this belief that any type of food that he likes, everybody needs to like. And if you don't, you're a fool. You don't know what it's good. See what I'm saying? Like, he thinks that I need to like what he likes. But even though he's my brother and we're similar under the same household, we're different, even when it comes to food. So, how many bars are there? How many do you see if you look on the left? How many on the right? 3, right? Yeah, right. Yeah. I wonder if this happens so often in our line of work, with probably things that are more complex than just those bars. But I feel like sometimes we get mad at each other and we're looking exact same thing. We just have a different perspective about the same thing. So how do we go about really communicating this difference? How we go about communicating differences that could become barriers between us? How do we build bridges over things that will never be the same? And actually be okay not being the same is a step forward. So strategies for perspective shift, and hopefully, these pictures will allow us to leave today with, with the thought that, we can be better, we can do better, we can communicate better, we can treat better, and we are still someone under construction and trying to develop, and hopefully we'll turn this into positive impact at work. Even trees embrace loss because they know it's only a season. Let me tell you something about problems at work. They shall pass. Do not treat the problem like if it's the end of the world. Do not let your behavior follow that thought, because once it follows, your emotions follows that behavior, and it's going to be too late after you already express your frustration to someone. That too shall pass. What do you think of this picture? It's a pump that is being motivated by self-doubt, right? What happens to problems, or the perspective of problems, when that exists? They increase. And it's interesting because it's a pump, because if you have done this before, the balloon doesn't just get bigger at once. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So it starts small and it's progressive. That means as we continue to linger in our self-doubt, we might be increasing the perspective we have on problems. And even the way we communicate that to others, we might be exaggerating what the problem might not even be. A long time ago, we're talking to, I don't know if it was a pastor or a friend of mine, can't remember, but we were talking about that most of the things, and talking about how we apply suffering upon ourselves. We end up suffering about things that never end up happening because we dwell on this type of perspective. We start thinking and projecting what the problem could be. Virtually speaking, we're suffering, but in reality, that suffering never comes to exist. It never exists. You look back, the problems that you ever thought were going to be bigger, they're way smaller than you ever projected them to be. Now, I know it is some sort of a survival mechanism for us to react. What about this one? Percentage of your worst days you've made it through. 100%. Wow. You can actually overcome them, So as we think about these problems and how we feel them, understand that you will overcome those problems. And that is perspective. Progress. Today might look like this on the left. How does it look for the year? Hopefully like our investment account. Right? You are just on one perspective of the full journey. You're zooming in. Today was not good. Guess what? That's not the end of the story. Right? Perception of a problem. Today looks like this in a week, in a month, in a year. So how do we change perspective? I'm going to go a little faster. So let's talk about self-care. many of you guys agree with this picture? So you won't let it happen to your phone, but you let it happen to yourself. That is self-perspective, right? That's perspective about us. Are you taking good care of yourself? Do you want to fix 51% of your problems, going with the 51 rule? If you want to fix 51% of your problems, sleep well. Get a great mattress, get a great pillow, figure out what's not going well for you, and sleep well. If you don't sleep well, I guarantee you the balloon of your problems is going to be just already big, because when you don't rest, you are acting on your weakness, not on your strengths. And you're going to be leaning on that. Sleep, sunlight. Remember, Renee? All the meetings were outside. Vitamin D, vitamin D, vitamin D. I mean, goodness, I feel guilty if I'm not in the sun now. No. Exercise, nutrition. Think about these 4 areas for yourself. This is perspective. Just ask yourself, if you had to rate, I'm not going to ask that, but if you had to rate yourself in each category, 1 through 10, what it would be that self-assessment, right? And here, it's not how you compare yourself to others. It doesn't matter what others do. It matters is what you do. Where are you? What? And if you say I am a 3 on sleep, honestly, I feel like I've been a 3 or 4 on sleep since my surgery. It's kind of been hard to sleep ever since. And like, what I need to do? I've been going to the doctor, and I'm going to do a sleep study, and I'm going to try to figure out what's going on. See what I'm saying? I need to figure out what's my next step, because I'm gaining perspective from my self-assessment. See if you can see this one. And the reason why I did it like so small, it's because you guys are so familiar with your phones. I wanted to give you the same perspective you guys have on your hands. I don't know. You can only see as far as you think. I was just testing you, yeah. You can only see as far as you think. Strong minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, weak minds discuss people. How many of you are going about resolving problems at work by doing the blaming game? You know what the blaming game is? It's someone else's fault. It's called redirecting what's going on and blaming on someone else, you know? But if you really want to address the problems at work, because they do exist and they're external to us, we need to stop covering them with faces and looking at them and confront them as brutal facts. Those are just facts that are happening, and we need to address them. And there's going to be people in different perspectives that can contribute for that problem. This is another, I'm not, again, this picture is not saying that we have either side, but it's giving us direction from one side to the other. From a victim mentality, how do we get to self-acceptance and improvement? From a scarcity mindset, how do we get to abundance mindset? From a tendency to see failure all the time, how do we seek feedback? From a mindset of living in the past and future, how do we shift to live in the present? Those are dynamic perspectives that we would like to hopefully be on the move. This is success in imagination. That's success in reality. Another way to put it is, have you guys heard about the learning curve? Oh, that's a learning curve, you know. And normally we imagine the learning curve not like that line, but we imagine more like a progressive line like this. This is the learning curve. But the learning curve is actually more like you see success in reality. That's the learning curve, because there is frustration. If you play an instrument, and Elisa is a musician, she will know what I'm saying. How many times you hit a wall and eventually nothing happens, and suddenly, because you continue to insist on discipline and consistency, you unlock that wall, and then suddenly progression happens and takes place. But the learning curve is that going back and forth and struggling in the process. So 1250, I'm going to finish with this. Recognize the impact of perspective. Employ perspective shifting strategies. Find ways to look to change your perspective. Maybe it's your mindset. Maybe it's your environment. And commit to positive change. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to end with this idea of positive change. Be grateful. Exercise gratitude. And I can tell you that all of those things, for as many as we can list, you don't even have to think about them so hard, because gratitude will lead you to have the right mindset in every single situation. Thank you so much. I hope the food was great.
All right, thank you, Andre. I hope that we take all the things that he's shared and apply it and can think about it and encourage each other to continue to think about perspective, right? And that everyone has a unique perspective and to continue to practice and exercise gratitude. So thank you for your time.